Carlos Sainz as we are about to embark on his new journey with another constructor, which I think has been he's been through several. But big shout out to everybody. How you doing? Jay from Wolfpack Performance. We're going to talk about Carlos Sainz moving to Williams, Lewis Hamilton moving to Ferrari, and big shout out to Jesse James Bell. I got the new piece sitting up here on the wall, big brother, so appreciate you much. We got the Ferrari racing steering wheel sitting up here on the wall. Yes, big Jesse James Bell sending that so that it can be on display. So there it is, brother. Got the wall mount, got it up. There will be a couple of other items that we will be having for giveaways, but once we get all of these giveaways sent out, we'll go ahead and go through that. All super chats now until then are going to go on the wheel. So all super chats that you do for the next giveaways will go on the wheel. So just keep an eye out for that. But let's go ahead and talk about some things. Carlos has his moment to sit down and kind of debrief and decompress about the whole situation. Now, I already pretty much knew that Carlos getting the information about that he would no longer be continuing with Ferrari was going to be a blow. Big shout out to Mary Beanie. Big shout out to Extracts, Yuri Hill, and Galactus. So on the podium entering the live chat, Mary Beanie is first, like her driver Wildcat this past weekend in Abu Dhabi for the 2024 F1 Formula driving race we have here for Grudge Racing. Extract 38 is second, and Yuri Hill is third. Big shout out to Galactus. I see you. So I already knew that this was going to be, it wasn't going to be the best news for him. It wasn't going to feel comfortable for him. And that was going to be the situation. But what I will say is this, and we're going to talk about Lewis Hamilton before we go really into Carlos Sainz, because I think this is important. I don't know where people and in what world you are thinking that Ferrari had to sign Lewis Hamilton. People are saying these things, are saying Lewis Hamilton had absolutely nowhere else to go. And in such a way that they're implying as if nobody would have wanted Lewis Hamilton. And I do want to say this. Binotto coming out or being so called to say he would have never signed Lewis really doesn't mean a damn thing. Binotto coming out and saying he wouldn't sign Lewis or being quoted or implying that he wouldn't have signed Lewis doesn't mean a damn thing. He's not, to me, in my eyes, Binotto's, I mean, we know who he is. I'm not going to say who is he like he's nobody. We know who he is. But your stint wasn't the best to me. It wasn't the best. I think you should have done a lot more. And I don't think he could fully grasp and handle everything at Ferrari the way somebody who will need to be able to handle Ferrari to come in and make things happen. I think Fred Vasseur is looking more promising. I think Fred Vasseur is looking more promising to me. And until we see different, I'm going to keep that. So I think people are trying to say Lewis Hamilton to Ferrari is a desperate move. It's a last stretch move. Nobody else would have wanted you. You signed a contract and they just signed Lewis Hamilton strictly to improve their marketability and their profit margins. And I think that's bullcrap. I don't think Ferrari right now, being where they are in such a position that they are going to say, we just need to sign somebody to be marketable. Ferrari's marketable as it is. Whether they do good or they do bad, Ferrari's marketable. I don't think Ferrari were in a place where they said, you know what? Let's just do this for giggles. Let's just bring Lewis Hamilton in so people can talk about us. People are going to talk about Ferrari, whether good or for bad. Ferrari is one of those teams that will always be talked about. I don't ever see Ferrari disappearing in the distance like Kick Sauber did. I don't see that. Mary Beanie in the super chat says Lewis will be driving F1 75 on 22nd of January. You know we're going to be looking at that. The shakedown. Now, I hope they get all of this right. I already told you all. That I think Ferrari shakedown with Lewis Hamilton driving the car, if he's going to drive, is going to be the most viewed event in the opening season. I think even more so viewed than the livery launch of all 10 teams bringing their car there. I think Ferrari's shakedown launch will be more viewed than any other team on the grid. I just do. I think it's going to be that way. Lewis Hamilton, Ferrari, new car development, there's so much there. so much that people are anticipating, so much that people want to know, so much that people want to get a small glimpse just to even see, just to even get an inkling of where is this team going to be with Lewis Hamilton, with Charles Leclerc, with the development, with everything they learned from last season going into this season. So I think people need to pipe down and just stop the unnecessary bull crap of completely demeaning, demoralizing, disrespecting Lewis Hamilton and about his ability and his skill. He's already shown and proven to you that he could do more with less. He's already shown and proven to you this situation. So Ferrari signing Lewis Hamilton over keeping Carlos is something that you're going to do if you're trying to win. All right. Now, I've already told you, yes, Carlos at times looked like the more solid driver than Charles. All right. Charles is the better driver with upside, for sure. Carlos is no Lewis Hamilton, and neither is Charles Leclerc. So if Lewis Hamilton becomes available and you can pay that ticket, which they can, you do. You do that. Especially if you can look and say, you know what? He's not on the back half of his career where he's out of his ability to perform at his talent level to the point where we can't get anything from that, to the point where him combined with what we're doing is not going to be a positive. And if he is available, he's surely a better option here than Carlos is. Not saying Carlos is a bad driver. And I completely understand where Carlos is coming from with his reaction to them basically firing him, basically telling him you're out the door. And I commend Carlos. On his ability to still stay in the team and perform well. I do. Carlos had been through a lot with Ferrari. And I'm glad he feels that all those people that he could count on and that they were there to support him through that time, that rough spell that he had talked about going through, were there for him. And now it's time for him to move on. Now, Carlos said something that I don't think is completely accurate. Carlos said that there's a big target on his head now that he's going to go to Williams. I would debate that there was a bigger target on your head while you were driving for Ferrari. Whether it was to your credit or your fault or not, when you play for teams like the Cowboys, you play for teams like San Francisco, you play for championship teams currently like Kansas City Chiefs. When you play for these teams, there's a certain cachet and expectation that comes with it. And sometimes it's totally beside what you have done as a body of work. No, if you play for this team, we expect you to win championships. You're S-Bob. Regardless of what's going on, you're S-Bob. And if you can't do that, then you suck. And that is unfair, but it is a real thing out here. So for Carlos to say that there's a bigger target or a big target on his head now that he's driving for Williams, I would debate that there was a bigger target on your back when you were driving Ferrari. I think now that you're driving for Williams, there's a bit of house money kind of situation going on there. All right. Big shout out to Marciano. Big shout out to Selfmade. I see y'all popped in the live chat. Big shout out to them checking in. I think there's a bit of house money going on there. Now, if we look at some things, we look at Carlos and his performance. We're going to go back to Renault because Renault is, to me, more comparable to where Williams might be now than where they are compared to McLaren and Ferrari. Now, here we got 2018, he finished 10th. All right. We go down here when he got with McLaren 2019, 6th. Pretty much stays the same. No improvement. No real big situation or change. He still brings in 6th, still in the top 10. And with Renault, even, finishing 10th was still something to be said. Now he gets to Ferrari. Bow does even better car, better team at this point in time. Ferrari compared to certainly McLaren at this point in time. 2021 goes to 5th, still stays at 5th. 2022 then pops on up down to 7th place in 2023. And we all know 2023 was a bit rough for Ferrari. I want to say it was either 2022, 2023 when they had engines, power units just catching on fire. It was even throughout their customer team. Then here this season, brings it back down to 5th. So Carlos has been bumping his head on 5th place for a bit of time now, almost to the point where is this Carlos's ceiling? Carlos has been in far longer than Charles Leclerc. All right. He's the elder statesman more so than Charles Leclerc. So it would, to me at this point in time, is he old? No. Carlos still has, to me, a lot of time. Mary Beanie in the super chat says, Merry Xmas and blessed New Year's, Jay and fam. Big shout out, Mary Beanie. It's not quite that time yet. We still going to be talking till that time come, Mary Beanie. Don't be talking to me like you about to all of a sudden be up out of here. We still got some time for that, but much appreciated, and I wish you the same as well. But, Carlos has been in the game for some time, and I think that in this time, is it fair to start kind of saying like maybe he's a top 5 driver, and at that top 5, he's on the bottom of that. He's 5th. All right. Big shout out Artistics popping in. He's been in since 2015, which means coming up next year is going to be his 10 year. He's going to be in a decade of Formula One racing. I think the next year will start his 10 years of driving in Formula One. His best finish in those 10 years is 5th. He's had some challenges through that time, Toro Rosso, Renault, and McLaren, and now Ferrari. And it would almost seem, I would almost hate it for Carlos, 10 years in, if Carlos runs into a situation where, let's just say Ferrari comes back in this coming up season, which Charles has been in going on, what? Charles is going to probably be in going on 8 seasons then. This would be his 8th season or 9th season or something like that. So it would almost be a shame that if Carlos leaves this team, because he left McLaren, and it was some years before McLaren really started coming online, so I can't really fault him here, but it still is what it is. He leaves McLaren. McLaren now turns up to seem as if they are about to be in their groove. He leaves Ferrari, and it is very well possible that Ferrari next season could turn up and be in the groove even more so than McLaren has this season. And I wonder if Carlos will look back and say, every time I'm in a situation, I'm out of it before it gets the boom. I'm in these situations, and then I'm out of them before the teams come alive. And I've already put in the time with the team. I've been there with the team through its struggles, and I'm not there to reap the benefits. Much like Sebastian Vettel with Aston Martin. He decides to retire, and the next season they have a car that Alonso collects 8 podiums with. That, I would have preferred to see Seb be the one driving that car to reach those accomplishments. Just how I feel about that situation, because he was there when Aston was down. They were going through a lot of BS, trying to get the car to come alive, struggling for development. Then they nail in on a car and a development point where Alonso throughout the season collects 8 podiums. I mean, who wouldn't want it? Who would not have wanted to see Sebastian Vettel collect 8 podiums? I know for sure I would have wanted to see that. So yeah, I think that's a bit rough if that does happen and Carlos looks back and says, I'm just always missing the opportunity where I could really, really start battling. But then it's still to be said, you still have to battle your teammates. I'm not sure if Carlos, given the fact that Charles has had higher finishes earlier in his career in that time span than Carlos, he's had a higher finish overall in the championship standings in his entire career thus far than Carlos. So, yeah, I'd be inclined to think that maybe this, and it's going to be rough with Carlos at Williams, because although Williams now in a stride where I think that it is fair to say that Williams can start looking for better drivers because they have now put themselves in a better development situation, and they've managed to get administration and key personnel in place to where they are performing, it's still off to me from being on the bubble of being one of the top teams. I don't see I want Williams to be there. I just don't see them being there yet. Okay. And we got to keep it a buck. Like, they were a spot up from last. Okay. They're a spot up from last. That's a big far stretch to go into. Prayers to big shout out Mechanic Mercedes for sure, without a doubt. Prayers to Randy Moss. If you don't know, you should know, and prayers to anybody else that knows somebody or you yourself if you are in a fight battling cancer. You know how I feel about that, having women in my family that have either fallen due to breast cancer and my grandmother being a breast cancer survivor. You already know how I feel about domestic violence and especially cancer. You know, I lost my cousin just not even just a year ago, marks a date to cancer. So, my Marine cousin, so hoorah to him in heaven. May he rest in power. So big shout out to Randy Moss. I'm hoping that you can gather the energy, the support, the strength, the love, the vibes to just overcome this challenge and battle it out for sure. Saw that the Vikings were making sure that they paid homage to Randy Moss last night as Justin Jefferson got that touchdown. So I wish the best for Randy and anybody else that's fighting that battle. It's a rough battle. And, sometime I'm going to tell you all something. Sometime you might be looking somebody dead in the face and never know that they are fighting that. Never know that they are going through a situation where they are battling a situation where it is either leading to that or they are currently in that. People just don't know. Chadwick Boseman was another one, right? They made fun about him on set. They made fun about him in movies. They talked about he might have been on drugs. Had no idea this man was performing, showing up to work, showing up to play these roles while he was battling cancer and dying, essentially. So homage to out Randy Moss and everybody else. And as we get back onto the topic of Carlos, I hope that Carlos, he did post testing in Abu Dhabi with Williams and got himself in there. Very knowledgeable driver, educated driver, aware driver, acute driver. I said acute like in sharpness. Very, very charge forward type driver for sure. And I think all of the components he has are components that Williams needs. They haven't had a driver like in these past few years like Carlos Sainz. Albon is no Carlos Sainz. Very good driver, especially in comparison to Logan Sargent. And Logan Sargent was trash. All right. Latifi, trash. So this is their better driver pairing in some time. And I think a lot of us are hoping that it yields positive results. Even with that being said, there's not a bigger target on Carlos's back at this point in time. Okay. He's playing with a bit of house money. When you go to a team like Williams that is just now seeming to be something better than trash or nothing, then your people's expectations of you aren't as high as they would be if you were going into a team like, we know what they could do. We know that this is a top 3 finishing team in constructors. We know we saw several drivers get podiums or win races. We expect you to come in here and do some of that. Nobody is expecting that from Carlos going to Williams. Nobody's expecting that from Carlos. There cannot be a bigger target on Carlos's back right now, him driving for Williams than driving for Ferrari. Okay, he's playing with a bit of house money. Nobody right now is saying, I expect Carlos to even win one race at Williams. Nobody should realistically be saying that. Nobody is saying that this driver pairing should be taking Williams up the grid for competing in the top 5 for Constructors Championship. Nobody is legitimately saying that, not until we see something that will tell us otherwise. Right now, I think most people legitimately, realistically, objectively are just thinking Carlos go into Williams and perform better than Albon. Carlos go into Williams and can you get into Q3 more often than not? Carlos going to Williams, can you even finish in the top 5 a couple of races in the season? Can you do that? I think those are legitimate, points, goals, markers. All that other stuff, nobody should be expecting that. So there's no way that I'm going to say Carlos is got a bigger target on his back right now. He's in a good, optimistic situation. I'll say that. Williams, looks to be making a turnaround, looks to have making a turnaround. I'll say that. Looks to be making a turnaround. James Vowles seems like he is the man for the job. Alex Albon, compared to the last two drivers, seems like the better driver, and let Williams know we got a car that can do more than what these guys are showing us. Now, what can this guy, Carlos Sainz, do in this machinery? And if he takes it further, if he does better, if he finishes better than Alex Albon, and Alex Albon goes into next season and has a similar season to this season, I think Alex Albon's on the hot seat. Depending on the driver market, Carlos test drove the Williams and then got salty. Oh man, I think there is a certain realistic thing that hits you when you drive it and you're like, this is going to be some work. Yeah, it's going to be some work, but it could be very beneficial. It could be very beneficial. I think also the way Carlos handles himself while driving for Williams will tell other teams something, because he also of course, he has no problem if he would ever be able to return back to Ferrari. He'd be open to it. I don't think they broke up. I don't think this ended on such a bad type of term where neither one, the team or the driver, would be willing to sit down and collaborate again. I don't think that's where it is. And Carlos never knows. I mean, could he possibly be driving for Mercedes? Will Russell be able to do what he needs to do? Will Antonelli outperform Russell? Will they be looking for something else? Will Russell be looking to make a move somewhere else? Is Russell the type of driver that might be looking to go to Red Bull if he ever could, if they were ever trying to compete or still compete? There's a lot of things going on. And Kenny Bugs and I spoke about this on F1 Minute before, that I, just like Kenny B, do not think that Red Bull are going to be the most dominant team next season, because they weren't the most dominant team on the back half of the season as far as development. They just weren't. And there is a false narrative going on out here that Max Verstappen, it seems like all season, was in the fourth, fifth, third fastest, slowest car. They want to keep using slowest instead of fastest. If you're in the top 5, you're one of the fastest teams on the grid. If you're consistently, come on, stop that. Like, he didn't have that. Now on the back half of the season, yeah, they struggled to develop, and he was good. He front running that. Galactus in the super chat said, Carlos, don't wreck the car, break the cycle, please. Yes, and we all know Carlos had some mishaps this season, and I don't think one of those was completely his fault. I think there might have been a mechanical element to one of his situations there. Mechanic Mercedes says, is it true Red Bull going with Lawson over Yuki? I will say, I'm going to tell you this. I haven't heard that news yet, Mechanic Mercedes. Now, we did go over the official and there was one portion on there there was a portion on there where in VCARB or whatever you want to call them, they still were waiting to see what they were going to do as far as the driver, okay? To be determined on that situation. It was TBC, and it just escapes me right now, but it was there. Yuki was slotted in for that. There was nobody slotted in for that seat, and Perez was slotted in for Red Bull as well with Max Verstappen. So at this point in time, I don't think they have went over Lawson for Yuki for the Red Bull seat. Yuki was slotted in for VCARB, and nobody was in for the second seat at the VCARB team. So Lawson or Awasa might be in for that seat. I still haven't seen the news on it, and maybe we'll see it soon, or if it's come out, I haven't seen it yet, and maybe somebody else might know something. So we'll see how everything shakes out with Carlos at Williams. I don't think it's going to be a negative experience. I think this could be very character building for him. I think this could be a very good situation for him to sharpen his analytical skills and his feedback and helping to assist the team through verbiage and his experiences in the car with feedback to develop through a season. And this might very well be a situation where it just equips him with a better arsenal of tools as a driver to go back to a top performing team and not seeming like he's going to bump his head on just top 5 finishes at the end of the season. Extracts 38 says, if Kimi performs well, he will be on Ferrari's radar as he is Italian. That is a good point. That is a good point. Let's not also forget Ollie Berman already in that system. If Ollie Berman performs well at Haas, I think he's going to be on their radar first. Ollie Berman performs well at Haas, and you can look at those two drivers and say that Kimi Antonelli had better tools available to him, while Ollie Berman had lesser tools available to him, and a team that we know is troublesome and a team that we know has ran it up in constructor championship, I think that Ferrari can probably say, maybe Ollie is still our guy. Maybe Ollie's still the next one to come up through here. And with the loyalty situation there, we'll see what happens. But very good point, because we know how Ferrari can be with that. And 083 says, Jay, I totally agree with you. I have absolutely no expectations with Carlos at Williams. I think that Williams would be very happy not to have a car turned into scrap. Bro, that's what I'm saying. Like, for real, it is for real, bro. Yeah. Like, can we just not wreck the cost cap? Because Williams, by way of Colapinto and Albon this season, I don't know where they gonna be with the cost cap situation. And that's gonna be another conversation for another video, because that could be. I'm interested to see where they're going to be when they submit all their documents. I think it's still going to be. I think they submit the documents in March, and so I'm ready to kind of see where that's going to be. So we will see what happens in that situation for sure. But Carlos, I am looking forward to see him driving for Williams. I'm looking forward to see him perform well at Williams within perspective of where Williams can finish. And I'm willing to see a little boom type situation. Like Carlos at Williams, breaking through a barrier the other drivers couldn't quite break through, showing that this is where we could be with a driver like Carlos compared to drivers like Logan Sargent and Latifi and maybe even Alex Albon. And if Alex Albon, I am really hoping that Alex come back next season and has a better season. This season I was it wasn't too great for me with Albon. I expected a bit more from Albon than what he provided this season. So I need a cleaner season. I need less wrecks, less crashes, less incidences, less damaging of the car. I don't want to see Williams next season in a situation where we can't run two cars because we don't have parts. I need to see that change as well. Galactus, I think Williams had almost 20 wrecks this year, and that's crazy, bro. If that's even a real number, we might have to go back and look at the situations and kind of count them up, because that's crazy, because in some weekends they did it twice. Just doubled or tripled up. I think in one weekend they tripled up. I think Colapinto wrecked in practice, wrecked in quali, and then Albon wrecked in the race, completely not finishing that. It was horrible. I think that's what happened. But yeah, it was not good for Williams at all this season in that situation. So we'll see what happens. Let me know where you sit in the comment section. Let me know what you are expecting from Carlos next season, Williams. Let me know what you're expecting even from car launches. That's where we're going to be next. Car launches, liveries, and also shakedowns. See how many teams are going to do shakedowns this season. I think that's going to be a thing that teams are going to try to do. Now, this coming up season, they're all going to unveil liveries in one building altogether, 10 teams there. But I believe still most teams, if they aren't, they should do a separate livery launch along with a shakedown that will give us a little bit more. I don't know how much information they're going to have in the team launch where they're doing the anniversary situation, but I would like to see a little bit more involved in the car development and taking it out on track, driving it, so we get a little bit of understanding. Now, I don't think anybody expects a lot from Red Bull. Red Bull have been pretty deflating and disappointing when it comes to livery launches. They just put a BS car out there. They're not really trying to show anything, which I understand it. From a strategic point of view, I'm not mad about it. It just, you kind of cheat the overall expectations and the motivation for what this is supposed to be. And Red Bull just are Grinches when it comes to that. So we'll see what they do with that. And I don't want to see a bunch of CGI launches. Can we please get away from that? It's totally cheesy and it's cheap. And that's probably why they do it, because it's cheap. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Big shout out to you all. Big shout out to everybody. Also, prayers and condolences to another unfortunate school shooting that has taken place, and another kid has went into a school with a firearm and ended several lives and even their own. We had one here in Georgia not even some months ago. Now we got it somewhere else, and it's really getting absurd. Parents, talk to your kids. Teachers and counselors, be aware of indications as soon as you can, and don't ignore certain things, because you never know what the tip of that iceberg is compared to the amount of that iceberg that's under the water. It could be very vast and volatile and ready to break at any point in time. And friends, people that consider themselves friends and associates of people, you know, things that these people have said indirectly or directly to you that could lead you to think that could be dangerous, and you ignore it. And the next thing you know, people are ending up dead. Okay. This kid that did it in Georgia, there were plenty of warning signs. There were another school that could have sent correspondence over. There was plenty of evidence. Even his mom knew, and you still let him go about. Even tried to call the school, to the point where you should have took your ass up to the school personally and grabbed him. There should have been something done. And it's too many times where a lot of people are being passive about situations like this. You got to stand up and meet these situations head on, to try and head off some things that are not only dangerous and deadly to others, but maybe even that same person. All right. So big shout out to you all. Wolfpack Performance. The fam is up. We'll be back. We're going to do another F1 minute, even in the off season. All right. There's a lot of things going on right now. We're getting ready for the holidays, a lot of travel, a lot of getting ready for 2025, a lot of trying to get these gifts out to you all. The shirts, I'm hoping we're here this week, damn it, so I can start packing all that up and get it out just after Christmas, if not before Christmas, if I can. But if not, trust me, we'll get out. When they all get here, I'm going to start packing them. I'm going to let you know. And those people that have not contacted me yet, you still got some time to contact me. If you don't contact me, when I get ready to, and I ship these out, whatever is left behind will be respun for on that original wheel, minus the names of the people that got drawn for before. All right. So, hey, things go back up. I want them to go out. So I will see you all soon. Jay from Wolfpack, I'm out. Peace.